Happy Sunday. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time of day it is that you are catching this. I'm a little bit late. Seems to happen on Sundays lately. So we're going to go over the Social Security Roundup for last week. That would be the 20th, April 20th, 2026 until Saturday, April 25th, 2026. So on the 20th, guys, and by the way, I hope you're having a great Sunday. I hope it's peaceful and meaningful in some fashion for you. So on Monday, this is a pretty well taken video, I suppose. We went over, and again, this is in that series from a live stream where we take like 3 questions and we present them. So it's not some big conglomeration for those that prefer it that way, smaller bits. And then we can identify what the questions are so people can pick and choose. So in this case, this was, I almost feel like opening it up. We discussed how much evidence it takes to win a claim. And specifically, we talk about how your RFC evidence, that's your residual functional capacity evidence, will affect your vocational expert testimony. The meaningfulness of hospitalizations, need to take breaks, and excessive absences. And of course, just a reminder, claiming it, particularly the last 2, breaks and excessive absences, is not the same as having medically supported evidence supporting that claim. So you always want it to get into your medical records. And not just once. It's got to be an ongoing problem to show that it's an actual disability, not a one-hit wonder. We discussed how you can prove some of the symptoms-based time off task needs you might have, as well as when you get bad therapy notes, must they be submitted to the SSA? And then we discussed a little bit reconsideration denials and updated medical evidence. I think it was about when on recon, what you're going to be wanting to be doing. Don't be just sitting waiting for a recon decision without taking action. Particularly important for pro se claimants, but also a word to the wise for representatives. Because I know there was a school of thought where, oh, just let it ride, see if it gets overturned. It probably won't, and then we'll go on to hearing, and the case takes another year. I don't really subscribe to that action plan, and I just don't think it's in line with our ethical duties to our clients. So, okay, that was Monday. Let's see what we had Tuesday. And I have to scroll back because I'm actually opening them up because I can't see all the points unless I open them up, meaning all the points we covered or the summary of the points we covered. Okay, Tuesday was, this is the 21st, guys. This was a tip about when you're doing the work history report, a little strategy you might use by incorporating some of the information you have in your function report, particularly questions 5 and question 20, and how that can help you with your function report. I mean, with your work history report. We use it every time. So I wanted to share that with you. April 22nd, so that would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So of course we had our live stream, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, and that was huge fun. Of course, it went over 2 hours as it typically does, even though we're not really supposed to. But also our 12 o'clock report, it came out like everything else. And this one was about, the title is your disability lawyer actually building your case? Not to touch on what we just talked about, but, and so a couple of the points we talk about in this, how often your disability lawyer should contact you, communication before a consultative exam or reconsideration, how reps build a case behind the scenes, that's assuming the rep is doing that, why client updates still matter, and I would say they are the most significant item at all to a strong case, is your updates as to medical treatment, visits, that would include diagnostics in real time, like when you get home from that appointment. And then we also talked about why, in my opinion, SSD only firms, it could be SSD/SSI only firms, They handle cases differently than a traditional law firm who engages in state level law. It's very different animals. And sometimes the ones from state level law, which I used to do before I 100% went to SSD, they haven't quite grasped or chosen to grasp the differences of how it should be handled to have best results. And probably also how to best keep your clients at least comfortably communicated with. Communication is, I will say, probably the biggest complaint people have. They have that with state law work as well, and regular, traditional law firm practice. It's one of the biggest, I think, ethics violations or ethics complaints. And definitely in our field, probably in all fields though, now with technology, it's not necessary. You don't have to be spending your day on the phone chit-chatting with clients when you can communicate and answer their questions online, and leave your phone conferences to things that are case necessary for that. But there's no reason why not to have the other ways of answering their questions. Okay, so that was Wednesday. When did we say that was? That was the 22nd. So the 23rd, Thursday. Right, here's another little ditty. We went over its title, just in case you wanted to look at it. Do friend letters and consultative examinations really help your case? And the topics in this particular segment included your CDR concerns after an IQ-based approval, how much weight friend and family letters actually carry, why coworker statements may help more than friends and family, why SSA may still order a consultative exam even though you've provided what you consider to be very robust evidence, and what consultative exam requests can mean for a claim. People say, is this good that they scheduled me for a CE? Is this bad? Blah, blah, blah. So we just touched on that a little bit. So that was 23rd. That was Thursday. So Friday was a Red Friday for law review, dedicated, of course, to our deployed military members who can't be home with their families like most of us can be. So every Friday I do that. And this particular one was about a Massachusetts woman who committed 25 years of SSA fraud. And it was due to telling lies about her marital living situation, essentially claiming to be living without her husband in the house when he really was living there. 25 years of stealing from the SSI fund, or SSI program, when those monies should be serving those that qualify for them under the financial constraints. And living arrangements, as you know, can be very important. People don't often understand why. It gets very frustrating, and I understand that. But here's an example where you can see a woman is pretending to be a solo, no-income person needing SSI, like she's going to be living on, $1,000 a month, plus whatever the plethora of other welfare benefits stem from that locally. So I think we can all sympathize with that, right? She's disabled and poor and has no spousal support, nothing like that. No one gifting her money, no spouse taking care of her, like what is our legal and financial responsibility once we commit to the contract of marriage. So when you take a person like that, and then you take another person who actually has the hubby living in the house, claim that he didn't, that she was that lonely solo person, all by herself. And meanwhile, you have a working spouse that is living in the house, paying you money to pay bills, or vice versa, just, unified monies. That's a big difference. One is impoverishment and one is not. And the one that is not might be lower income. I don't know if the guy works full time or likes to work part time and not really put in a full day's work. I don't know. But it was just an example so you could see blatantly, the single person who has no help gets this benefit to help her survive. That's how we care for our needy, right? And then to pretend that you are that lonely, needy person, regardless of whether you're disabled. SSI is for the poor, not for the middle income, not even for the lower middle income. It's for the really poor. It's to keep everyone off the bottom floor. It's a social welfare program by a society that, by and large, cares very much about its needy, not so much about its greedy. Okay, that was Friday. Saturday, I had an interesting Saturday. I had to get a new car. um, let's see. That's the 25th, right? Last day of the week. All right, so it was another segment. And this time we talked about, I will say it's episode 7. It was about consultative examiners lying. Uh, and by the way, this is still from the April 1st, 2026 live stream. We talked about how SSA handles medical records requests. These are all answers and discussions based on questions you all asked. What to do if a consultative examination report is false. That is not that unusual to see erroneous statements of fact. Can't really dispute the opinion. That's going to be later on in, presenting medical evidence saying this clearly is stronger than that. That's different. False statements of fact, like he can't do buttons, but they never asked you if your fingers would work with buttons, or they never asked you to demonstrate, or they never even asked you if you could. Just a blatant example there. I see it a lot. Best ways to report work activity. My recommendations, of course, trial work period protections, and what the trial work period protection is. And notice that people actually mix that up with, because they sound similar, ticket to work, TTW. So there's TWP, trial work period, completely unrelated mostly to TTP, ticket to work program. The latter being the one that you're trying to get off SSD, and they're going to help you by getting you full-time work and stuff. It's not really trickery as long as you know that's what it is. And then one last thing we touched on was SSA paperwork and how outdated the processes are. So that came up in conversation. It was kind of fun. All right, guys, that is what we did last week. I hope to see you Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join us. If you have a question, definitely post it. If you get there early and post it, that's fine too. You'll be one of the first people who are answered. If not, you'll probably have to wait longer. If you come and you don't want to post a question, that's fine, but maybe say hi so we see your screen name and I know to recognize you the next time. And yeah, we'll later dissect these live streams so I can present the questions in a more ingestible manner where people can pick and choose their videos. And very importantly, our 12 p.m. daily live recordeds. I say 12 p.m. because it's by and large 12 p.m. Sometimes we're running a little late. Things have been super, super busy, as you can imagine. So, but by and large, and particularly if we get a little ahead of the game with that, it's good. So those are the ones that support the 1%, 5% mission that you can, I believe, read about on the website. Just watching them, guys, and questions and whatever you want. You could always put a question, any SS question you have under any video, even if it's not a video pertaining to that, because I don't expect you to go dig one up. There's over 1,000, right? So definitely, if you could, and if it serves you, go ahead and pop into the 12 p.m. live streams because they do financially support the 1%, 5% mission. For those are the most unfortunate of claimants. And as do the memberships, both are very important, but the views are what really give it the most pow. And it's allowed us to double or even triple our 1%, 5% clients. So, all right, that's it, guys. I hope you had a great week. Hope you have a fabulous week coming up. I'm hoping to myself, and got a lot of deadlines this week, so going to kick them out, and then it'll be a little bit of smooth sailing with some more, bringing in new clients and all that kind of business. So anyway, thanks again, guys. I will talk to you later. Have a great week. Bye-bye. God bless.
Good morning, afternoon, evening. Hi, guys. I'm late to the game today. It is Sunday, April 19th, and this is not out before 12. My apologies. It was a rather busy week. Anyway, back in the saddle here. So we're talking about the week of, this is the Social Security Roundup for the week of April 13th. What a train wreck. Nope, April 14th, right? To Saturday, April 18th. So let's see what went on. There were probably a couple ball drops. We did have a live stream on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard as usual, but I was a little under the weather. Not horrifically bad, not enough to not do the live stream, but I think I dropped a few other balls, just trying to keep up the other work obligations. So sorry, I don't mean to put you guys secondary. And it was oversight actually, because something could have gone out and it just wasn't done right. Okay, so we've got the 18th. So let's see what we had going on. All right. So on the 14th, Monday, the question was, or one of the questions was, I wonder if I could do this. If I do that, will I see it better? Sorry, just checking out my eyeballs. This was the last, it looks like it was the last part, right? Oh my God, can't see much here. The last part of a series that came out of a live stream. And the topics that were covered in this were the short form versus the long form CDR, when a later CDR could actually change, I guess the date, some things regarding hearing format and attorney questioning, the workers' comp impact of SSDI was touched on, including the 80% offset rule that applies to workers' comp when it applies, not to every workers' comp case, something a little bit about supportive doctors and some claim strategies therein. The discussion is actually, we're now kind of summing it up and putting in the description so you could see more there if you don't care to listen to the video, but I encourage you to listen to the video so you can help the channel. Much appreciated. Share, like, and what do they say? Share, like, and subscribe, and comment, and always feel free to ask your questions. All right, so that was the 14th. This is really small. 15th, we went over. Again, now this was part one of our joint session I had with disability representative Shanna Justice and myself. Shanna is a non-attorney rep, and I am an attorney rep, as most of you know, and she and I see eye to eye on many things, and we enjoy having some dual sessions occasionally when both our schedules permit, particularly hers, really, because I tend to do this every Wednesday. That doesn't mean she's free to do it all those Wednesdays. Okay, so on this particular day, and this is again the first part of the April 1st, April Fool's Day live Q&A. Go away, dog, beat it. This concerned a few things. We discussed question 20 on the function report. I think that might have been the one where we did quite a bit of that. That might be the one where I had to put off a bunch of the function report questions for a very appreciated viewer. But we did do a different video so he could get it, he or she could get it separately. So we didn't take up all the live stream time addressing only her questions. Okay, so a bunch of stuff on the function report, particularly question 20. We discussed PTSD and panic attack limitations. We discussed how to describe sitting, standing, lifting, and walking. We discussed mental health symptoms on the SSA form, off-task behavior, and lying down during the day, why detail matters early in a claim, and the 2025 SSA waterfall chart discussion. As you know from a previous video, the SSA's waterfall chart came out for 2025, and it was pretty helpful to show that despite the influx of more cases, the award rates have not really declined. So that was good to hear. All right, so that was, when did we say that was? The 15th? Oops, oopsie. 15th. God, it kind of keeps growing. I'm sorry. Not in my normal layout here. The 17th. So that was, the 16th was, to this. Oops. This is episode 2, same thing. So more shares, which was actually kind of helpful because, like I said, I was not feeling so great. And I had to focus on the mandatories with my clients who have to obviously take priority. This concerned discussing missing therapy records, which is really not good. Psychotherapy notes versus usable evidence. The iWatch TV function report trap. How to explain poor focus, because that can be a meaningful limitation for many people, and I will say particularly those over 50. Those of you seeking a grid. And the question came up about, can I use notes during the phone hearing? Well, actually, I threw in the phone hearing. I think the question was in general, and most people don't have phone hearings. They have MS Teams hearings probably now, or maybe in persons. So we touched on that. a little bit. Gave our different opinions because, again, this is with Shanna and myself. So that was the 16th, 15th was Friday. So we had Red Friday. Now I'm calling it Red Friday, not just Friday, since it's always dedicated to Red Friday and our deployed military members, who I so greatly appreciate, and I think everyone here does, and everyone else should if they don't. So these Fridays are always dedicated to them. And this one was about a Louisiana mom who was indicted over the alleged because she's not yet been convicted, guys, so I don't share her name in the video. The video shared the reporting of the Office of Inspector General report, but it was the alleged theft of her own children's benefits. Yeah. And I came back from Harrisburg on Saturday, and the Saturday video did not go out. So my apologies. So what I did was this morning, I popped out what would have been Saturdays. And that was, of course, it was episode 3 of the 12-parter from April 1st. This is with Shanna Justice again, and we discussed various things, including it was our mutual, oftentimes mutual opinion that we discussed, and sometimes we diverge slightly from each other because practitioners do that. When a disability lawyer should contact you during your case, why clients must report treatment updates to their lawyer if they have a lawyer. If they're pro se, they have to go right to the adjudicator. What hearing prep should look like, function report style hearing questions, and the SSDI insured status after approval. That whole question and when that comes up. And I think that just had to do with that non-medical review. If you won your case medically, they got to double check that you were still insured during those, and that wasn't some typo that got you into the system. That's what I think that's mostly about. Might also be looking to see if you're a fleeing fugitive felon, because I don't think fugitives are allowed to collect their benefits. So anyway, guys, that was the week. It was a little crazy hectic for me, but you know what it was? It was actually a more sedate office housekeeping week. A little less stuff on the high-end strategy thinking stuff, just because you kind of have to be at the top of your game for that, which I generally am, except when the rare illness hits me. And it was, I think I mentioned it elsewhere, it was simply, I probably mentioned it last week's live stream, probably a self-perpetuated, instigated aggravation of what is probably going to be a chronic issue for me for the rest of my life, which many people have. It's very common, and it's where you can get gastritis from not keeping your food on the more bland side. I had just for future reference, for those that weren't here a year and a half ago, when I had an emergency gallbladder thing. I didn't know what it was. It was a middle of the night thing, and I had to have my gallbladder out, and there was massive inflammation in my duodenum, and then that subsequently led to 2 more emergency care visits, including the third one. This is all within a few weeks, in September of 2020. The third one being when I was traveling out of state, trying to take care of my passed away in-laws' home as we kept traveling down to that year. And it was while I was down there, the third one, all within a week apart of each other from the original, resulted in a 3-day hospital stay in a state that is not my own, and more surgery for some somehow other forgotten or not seen stones, 13 of them to be, and this would be gallstones, I think, right? Or they were created after, like in the last couple of, I don't know. I personally think they didn't find them the first time because within a week I was feeling kind of crappy. And then that's when I went to the ER midstream up here, and they said, "Oh, you look fine. It'll go away. It'll just, body's acclimating." And I'm like, holy moly. But anyway, and they're like, "Take those Tramadols," because opioids. I don't really want to. But anyway, I got through, and so this was just probably me not being careful. I was able to eat anything I wanted afterwards, which was, I guess, not that typical. And I did so. And then a year and a half later, I paid the price. I have to say, I think I learned there's something called stacking triggers. You can usually withstand a trigger here, a trigger there. So you can have some of your favorite food here, just not like all the time, and alcohol. And I was doing both during some happy hours that were a little more frequent. A friend in town, like you can have certain things crop up. And I'm thinking that's what it was. I just wasn't being careful. So the stomach was telling me to take care of business. So I know that now. I've been on the brat diet for, what is today, Sunday? Since, I guess technically since Tuesday night, late afternoon, when I decided this is not going well. Now, I knew the last time things started to not go well, I had to go to the ER, so I immediately jumped on my regime. I had the leftover prescription for the Tum Tum, tons of it, so I just jumped onto that and also did a little bratting, which is kind of a boring diet, but you really didn't want anything else anyway. So I'm still doing that, but I'm just like now starting to add in, like today I had a cup of coffee which I haven't had in a week. Might be why I had a little headache, not sure. And I used that mushroom coffee, the Rise coffee. I don't know if you guys ever tried it. There's a few different brands out there. This is just the one that we tried. It's something to get used to, but I did that whole Lent thing where I stopped using any sweetener in my coffee. So I'm like, if I can do that, I can do anything. Anyway, we'll see what happens. See how I feel later today. But everything else I ate was like a brat, slightly modified. Like I can have eggs now. Just not supposed to douse them with a ton of grease or butter, that kind of thing. So, and I can have toast. So that worked out pretty good. All right, guys. Have a great week. Have a great rest of your Sunday. And I hope to see you visiting our 12 o'clock recorders as they greatly support this channel, which has a very specific mission. Some of you know about, and love it when you come to the Wednesdays live stream, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday, unless notice has been given that I can't for some reason. And I love it. It's just so nice to mingle with everybody and see everybody else mingle, and of course ask their questions. And then I like to share them after, so people that couldn't make the live stream can definitely catch it. And they can catch the stripped down version where all the pauses and, when I'm scrolling to the next question, all that stuff stripped out of it so they're quicker. And that's what a lot of these subsets are, where the things I was mentioning, like, we went over this, and this, that is literally like live questions in the chat that are coming out. And I try to do those in smaller segments because I know people don't necessarily want to go through a 1.5 hour or 2 hour recording and hope they hear something that is relevant to them. So I'm just trying to make it a little bit more ingestible. And now with the better descriptions in the description, you can actually see, I don't know, people would look at that, but they're going in there, they help me actually. So you can like kind of pick and choose. But I appreciate if you watch the dailies on that come out at 12 p.m. because, again, it goes to the site, the channel, and that whole thing about the channel mission, which has come along really good, really well. And the live streams are just great because I meet more people, and some do subscribe, and some do then become 12 o'clock viewers. And otherwise, I met some really sweet friends that I interact with this day, people I've represented since and people that I don't. And it's kind of a blessing. It's really nice in this rather otherwise solo field I work in. So anyway, everybody have a wonderful Sunday. I hope you had a great last week, and I hope your next week is even better. And I wish everyone the best of health and the best with your claim or that of your loved one, and prayers that it all goes faster rather than slower for you, and it all works out in your favor, right? Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.